What's going on, Night Nation? Welcome to UCF Uncut, another episode. We are going to break down UCF versus Baylor, preview and prediction. But first, as always, we are bringing back the UCF Brew of the Night. What do we have today? And it's that time of year. It's October. So it was only natural that we had to sample some of these pumpkin brews that they have available. Total Wine is probably the go-to place, at least in my area, to really try some brews across the country and sometimes locally. So let's give this one a sample here. This is a pumpkin lager, and it is from a brewery called Lakefront Brewery. And Lakefront Brewery is based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All right. Yeah, it says here, lager brewed with real pumpkin, cinnamon, allspice, ginger, nutmeg, cloves, and mace. All right. Let's give it a go, as always. Get a proper pint. We're going to go ahead and sample this. And we always are going to go ahead and sample it, 1 out of 10. 10 being the best. A pumpkin lager sounds pretty refreshing on a Monday after a long day. All right, so here it is for you. Let's go ahead and give it a sample test here. It's really good. Very pumpkin-y, but also a lager. It's light, but very holiday-like. Perfect for this time of year, especially in Florida. It's pretty light. But overall, very good if you like pumpkin. And I taste the cinnamon and nutmeg as well. I'm going to give this one an 8.3 out of 10. So go ahead and check this one out if you get a chance. Handcraft happiness. Absolutely. Cool can too. So that is today's brew of the night. Now, time to talk about UCF and Baylor. This game, at first when the schedule came out, was more of a concern as a UCF fan. But now that we've seen who Baylor is and kind of where UCF is, you have two programs basically trending in the opposite direction. You have UCF coming off a bye, 4-3, 1-3 in the Big 12. And really, when you look at UCF's schedule, UCF was in every single game, very competitive. Lost to Cincinnati by a little bit more than one score. Lost to Kansas by 1 score. And then Kansas State by just over 1 score. So really competitive in all those games. Could have easily have went the other way if it wasn't for the refs and a couple bad coaching calls by our head coach, Scott Frost, offensive coordinator. Now, let's take a look at this Baylor team. There are some really, really interesting facts about this game, but we're going to break it down. So, UCF, again, is 4-3, 1-3 in the Big 12. We have Baylor at Baylor. They are 4-4 on the year, 2-3 in the Big 12. So, really, we're right about the same with our record, right about the same in the Big 12 as far as standings go. And this is a big game for us and a big measuring game for us, as well as on the path to bowl eligibility. It's Saturday, November 1st at noon. We got relegated to ESPNU. It is what it is. Luckily, I have YouTube TV and I have ESPN, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to find it, I think, on ESPN, way in the back by ESPN Deportes and the Ocho. So not too good about the TV slot, but it is what it is. Okay, so UCF's coming in this matchup off the bye week, well-rested and refreshed after a blowout against West Virginia, right? So we're feeling pretty good as a brand. Not great, but much better than under Gus Malzahn, so I can tell you that. Baylor, meanwhile, is coming off a 2-game in-conference losing streak. They lost to Cincy 41-20. and they lost to TCU the week before, 42-36. So they're coming off 2 losses in a row. And some of the things that I like to do when we're breaking down, a UCF opponent is basically looking at how do they stack up on offense, defense, and special teams nationally and also in the Big 12. Sometimes I like to look more at the Big 12 because it's a little bit more of honed in on equal competition to see how we stack up. So Baylor, let's look at their offense. Their offense is the strength of their team. They are the 3rd best in the Big 12 when it comes to overall offense. UCF is actually the 4th best overall offense in the Big 12. And you heard me right. We are the 4th best overall offense, taking into account, total yards a game, points per game, passing yards, rushing yards, all that. So when you look at it, their biggest edge is their offense. And UCF, surprisingly, is right behind them. And the real big drop-off is when you look at the 2 defenses. And that's where I find an advantage UCF. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. All right, so now Baylor's offense is number 3 in the Big 12. They're 5th in passing in the country. 318 yards a game. But here's the best part. Guess who has the number 1 defense against the pass in the Big 12? UCF Knights, that's right. We have the number 1 defense against the pass in the Big 12. Opponents are only averaging 146 yards through the air against UCF. So something's got to give. This is going to be the key matchup for UCF. If we can slow down their passing game, we're going to beat them. And I'll tell you why. Okay, here you go. Their offense, they're only 89th in the nation in rushing. They only rush for 140 yards a game. So that's really not that good. That's bottom of the barrel almost in Power 4. I like to say there's Power 3. I don't think the ACC is a Power 4 conference anymore. So I like to say Power 3. So in the Power 3, being 89th in rushing in the country is not going to get it done. Now, UCF's defense is 10th when it comes to rushing yards. That is our weakness against the run. But it's okay because guess what? Baylor doesn't like to run the ball. They throw the ball. So I think we can minimize that weakness on defense against the run against a Baylor team who likes to throw the ball. So I'm not too worried. In the Big 12, UCF is 10th out of 16 teams, and against the run, we're only allowing 145 yards a game. And they're rushing for 140 a game. So we'll give them that all day. We'll give them 145 on the ground, but it's the passing that's going to be a huge wake-up call for them because they're not going to find success through the air against the number 1 against the pass defense in the Big 12, which is UCF. So we're going to get into, the theme and why I think UCF will win, some of the key takeaways and some of the things that we need to do as a team to beat Baylor on the road here. Now, Baylor, their offense is 35th in the nation in points for, okay? 34.3 a game, which makes sense because they throw the ball a ton. Here you go, though. Now, that stacks up against UCF's defense. That's 4th best in the Big 12 in points against a game at 17.1, okay? So we got basically points for. They got 34 a game. We're only allowing 17 a game. So there's a huge gap. Something's got to give. But they haven't faced a pass defense like our team all year. We have the best pass defense that they've faced all year in the Big 12. So that's something very interesting to look at is how we're going to stack up against their passing game. Because if we can shut down their passing game or at least keep them contained in the pass and not allow explosive plays, which I think Alex Grinch has done a phenomenal job at doing, Baylor's in for a long day. And we're going to talk about time of possession. Sometimes as a head coach, you want to use the time of possession to your advantage. You go ahead and pull that lever, UCF fast, forward. If we want to score quick, pull that lever back slowly if we want to run clock. and keep the game closer. Against an explosive passing offense like Baylor, we want to run the clock, run the ball, control the time of possession, pound the rock, build a lead, and then make Baylor play from behind and really force them to create turnovers. So we're going to talk about how they turn over the ball quite often. Now let's take a look at Baylor's defense. And that's the weakness of this team, by no doubt. Their defense is absolutely suspect. Baylor's defense is the fourth worst defense in the Big 12. Fourth worst. UCF is the third best defense. Okay? So when you're looking at these two teams and you're stacking them up, you got Baylor with the third best overall offense against UCF with the fourth best overall offense. So you got two offenses that are pretty much neck and neck. But then you compare the defenses, and Baylor is basically the 12th out of 16 defense. UCF is third best in the Big 12. Big gap, big difference, huge difference. And you know what they say? Defense travels. So yeah, we have to go to Waco, Texas. Similar climate to Florida. Not that far. I mean, it's far, but we have some Texas guys on the roster. And also, defense travels. So that defense is traveling. That third best defense in the Big 12 is showing up. And Baylor's defense is looking brutal. Let's look at this. Out of 131 FBS teams, Baylor ranks 120th, allowing 32.6 points a game. This is their biggest, weakest link. Their defense is allowing almost 33 points a game on average. They are ranked in the Big 12 15th out of 16 on defense and allowing 30.7 points a game. So and how much points they allow a game? They're basically almost the worst team in the Big 12. They're almost as bad as West Virginia on defense. We just put up a ton of points on West Virginia. And you got to think, geez, if their defense is as bad as West Virginia's defense, it's not going to look pretty for them going up against the number 3 offense in the Big 12. Taven Jackson's starting. Scott Frost just came out and announced it, and he's starting to play better every game. So honestly, I feel very good about the UCF quarterback room. Him and Cam Fancher are both really good options to run this offense, and we've seen it. So, Taven Jackson obviously is the best athlete on the team. So having him start, I'm very excited. Okay, so they have the 120th ranked defense, the 15th out of 16th ranked defense in the Big 12, near the very bottom in points a game allowing. Now, when it comes to passing yards, they're middle of the pack, a little bit worse. They're 9th out of 16 in the Big 12. UCF is 8th in the Big 12 when it comes to passing on offense. We pass for 237 yards a game. They're allowing 212. So really, no surprise there. UCF's not going to win this game by passing. We can go ahead and get our average. They allow 212. We usually get 237. Let's just call it 200. If we can pass for 200 on them, the key is going to be our rushing attack. That is where UCF thrives. That is where UCF is going to gash this Baylor team, and that's where UCF is going to control the time of possession, the outcome of the game, the tempo of the game, take the crowd out of the game, and this is where UCF is really going to excel in this game. And here's some interesting stats. This might be my favorite stat of all. Baylor is allowing 190 rush yards a game. 190 rush yards on average a game they're allowing, okay? That's 15 out of 16 in the Big 12. Again, near very bottom. UCF is number 3 in the Big 12 in rushing. We're rushing for over 208 yards a game. So I said it before, if we can pass for average, under even our average of around 200 yards, we pass for 200, but if we can rush, they're the worst rush defense we've faced all year. I believe they're worse than West Virginia. If not, they're exactly right around the same. So the run is going to be there all day. And another thing that travels well on the road besides defense is running the ball. And I hope Paul Rubelt doesn't play. No offense to him, but the offensive line looked fantastic against West Virginia. If we can have that cohesive unit, no mental mistakes, no penalties to set us back, run the ball, hit the play action, hit the wide open screen, bubble screen. If they want to stack the box, bring pressure, use that Florida speed on the outside, get a little mismatch. Let's break an explosive play, and yeah, that's all it's going to take to win this game. We're going to focus on the rushing attack. That is a huge thing that UCF is going to dial in on. I know these coaches have circled that stat. It's almost like shocking how bad they are against the run. So yeah, Baylor is allowing a whopping 403 yards a game total. That's 13th out of 16th in the Big 12. So again, the defense is near the very, very back. They're allowing everybody to score on this team. UCF's offense is the fourth best in the Big 12. We're putting up 445 yards a game on average. This team we're playing, this Baylor defense, is worse than every Big 12 team we played all year, except maybe West Virginia. So if they're letting up 400 on average, and we're putting up near 450 on average against better defenses than they have, this could be an absolute, I know the running backs, Montgomery and Nixon are probably ready to feast when they're looking at this. I saw Stacey Gage is injured. Unfortunate, but he's young. He'll bounce back. But really, we got Nixon and we have Montgomery that are going to succeed here big time. So really, their defense is very suspect. Let's move on to special teams. Looking at special teams, kickers, punters, we always get into that. Their kicker is just about as good as our kicker. I looked at them. They're identical, 53-yard longs on the season, both of them. Baylor's kicker and our kicker. Extra points, they're 100% on extra points. We're 93% on extra points. But for the most part, we're exactly the same, our kicking. So, they got a decent kicker. And our kicker's been great. Punting. Here's a little stat that favors Baylor. Baylor has the number one punter in the Big 12. He's averaging 47.4 yards a punt. I've been a huge stickler against UCF's punter, Adam, I think it's Vinatieri, Ohio State transfer. I think there's a reason he didn't play at Ohio State. Every week we play a team, and I look at their kicker. Sometimes I just look at Conference USA games in the middle of the week, and I look at the kicking, and I'm like, let's just see what these punters are doing. They can't be better. They can't be worse than UCF's punter, and they're better. So Baylor has the number one punter, and let me pause. Why is punting so important in college football and in football in general? Punting is important because it flips the field when it comes to where you're starting on offense with your unit with the ball. So if you have a good punter, you could flip the field against your opponent. So, for example, if we have a drive that stalls out at, say, the 40-yard line of our own 40, and we can't get into our opponent's side of the field, and we have a kicker who's really good, like Baylor's kicker, who's kicking on an average of 47.4 yards a game, he can kick a punt all the way back to the opponent's goal line and check that ball down. And then UCF will come down, pat the ball, and they're going to have to start the ball maybe on their 5-yard line or 10-yard line. And they got to go 90 yards. So that's what it's called by flipping the field. And over time, as the game progresses, if you keep doing that with consistent punting, you're going to put yourself in a much better position to win that game, and you're going to make your opponent basically show you that they can drive the whole field. And that's hard to do consistently, especially against a good defense like UCF. So UCF's punter is 15th out of 16 in the Big 12. So we basically have the worst punter in the Big 12. He's only averaging 40.2 yards a punt. He's a terrible punter. I think there's better punters at the intramural field. I really do. I think there's better HVAC workers in Orlando in the greater metro area that we could probably recruit. We should have a little fake college game day setup with kickers, But instead of field goals, let's just have a punter at the tailgate, maybe in Memory Mall. We'll set up like a little UCF Uncut little like table, and we'll do like live podcasts, and we'll just give out a beer. Show me the ID or 21. We'll give you a beer for every kick, and I just want to see if you can punt. And you're an active student, maybe you go try out for UCF because our punter is brutal. No offense, but he's brutal. So let's look at some overall notes about this game here. Baylor and penalties. Oh boy. I love to see it because when you're playing UCF this year, 2025, one thing I look at when we look at opponents is I'm hoping that they're a very penalized team because we know UCF is definitely a penalized team. So that's something to think about. So one thing I would say is that they have been pretty penalized across the board. They have three, versus Cincy, they had 3 penalties for 40 yards. Not a ton, but some. On third down efficiency, they're not very good. They were 4 for 12. They lost time of possession, 24 minutes to 35 minutes against Cincy, and they only had 266 total yards of offense. And that's against that's against Cincy's defense, who's 9th ranked in the Big 12. So they weren't good on third down. They got 40 yards of penalties, and they played the 9th best defense in the Big 12. Now they're going up against the 3rd best defense in the Big 12 in UCF. And not only that, UCF is the number 1 defense against the pass in the Big 12. And that's all Baylor likes to do. That's Baylor's bread and butter. If they can't pass the ball, they're going to have to run the ball. And it's not too pretty over there because they're 89th best in the nation at running the ball. And that's not going to get it done against a UCF team that is going to expose this defense of Baylor. So, we're looking here, and they played TCU the week before, and they had 5 penalties for 44 yards. So, again, another 40-plus yard game of penalties. And here's the best one. They played Kansas State. They had 7 penalties for 69 yards. And they're consistently under 50% on third down conversions. And I think the penalties has something to do with that, but they're a very penalized offensive team, puts them behind the sticks, and it's keeping them from consistently converting on third downs. So that's interesting. And a fun fact, Taven Jackson is a perfect 3-0 when starting a full-time game. I saw that on Twitter today. That's a pretty good fact. So very excited to see how he does here on the road. Okay, let's go over UCF's keys to victory here. Let's see. UCF's keys to victory. We have the number 1 pass offense in the Big 12 in Baylor going against the number 1 pass defense in the Big 12 with UCF. Something has to give. Something has to give. Someone's going to be exposed. Is it going to be Baylor's offense? Most likely the case. Now, keys to victory. We need to slow down their pass offense. There's no doubt about it. And I think we have just what we need, the number 1 pass defense in the Big 12. Now, UCF needs to exploit the rush defense of Baylor. They're 15th in the Big 12. There's only 16 teams. So they're basically the worst rush defense in the Big 12. We have the 3rd best rushing offense in the Big 12. That's a huge gap. That's a 12-team gap in skill. So what does that metric tell me? UCF needs to run the ball more than not. We should throw the ball very little. Taven Jackson should be a game manager. Hold on to the ball, not turn over the ball. If he's injured, he shouldn't play, and he said he's playing, so I don't want to hear any excuse. And I don't want to see him dropping the ball at all. Because if we run the ball, we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them. Turnovers is going to be huge. This Baylor team turns over the rock a lot, and they have been consistently. Baylor turned the ball over 2 times last week against Cincy in that loss. They turned the ball over 4 times against TCU in their loss. They turned the ball over 2 times against Kansas State in their narrow 1-point win. So they're turning the ball over 2 to 4 times. And guess what? They haven't played a defense like UCF yet. So if they're turning the ball over 4 times against TCU and 2 times against Cincy and KSU, I would think we're going to turn the ball over for them. At least we're going to get two to three, maybe 4 or 5 turnovers on this team. And if they throw the ball and they make mistakes, Alex Grinch is going to confuse them. We're going to get some picks. And you know, that D-line is going to start turning up the pressure, tip balls, picks. Let's get some turnovers. Lastly, limiting explosive plays. They don't really have a lot of explosive plays, believe it or not, at least on tape recently. You know, most of their stuff is dinking and dunking. That's it. So that really tees up well for UCF's style of defense. Bend, don't break. Keep everything in front of you. Don't get beat over the top. No explosive plays. Keep it close. This is everything that lines up in this game is pointing UCF. And, you know, it's crazy. Oh, well, you know, you're a UCF fan, but that's really what the numbers are saying. Control time of possession. So, again, with the lever of how fast we want to be, UCF fast, in this game, we don't need to go UCF fast. Matter of fact, we need to go back to the George O'Leary days. Run the clock, slow the game down, run the ball. We can do that, take the crowd out of the game. We need to consistently put up points early and limit explosive plays. But if we control the time of possession and we run the ball, they're not going to be able to come back. Very similar to West Virginia. The difference between West Virginia and Baylor can only throw the ball, whereas West Virginia can only run the ball. Our defense against the run is suspect, but against the pass, it's fantastic. We're the best in the Big 12. So Baylor has a rude awakening coming. They're sleeping on UCF. Everyone online, Vegas, everybody is doubting this UCF team. I have a little bit of a I have a theory here of what the score is going to be, but I'll tell you this. It's not going to be pretty for Baylor. Now, there are some areas of concern for UCF. Field position flipped, right? They do have the number 1 punter, and we have the 15th worst. We're basically bottom of the barrel in punting. So field position-wise, their punter is going to pin UCF back and make us prove it. The good news is we can run the ball consistently. It shouldn't be a huge difference, but that is always a concern. Also, the away hostile crowd. Baylor can pack the crowd there. It's really cool. Apparently, the stadium's right on the lake, and I think the crowd's rowdy. They do a little sailgating, I've heard. I've always wanted to go to a Baylor game. I heard that they actually tailgate on like sailboats and boats on this lake before the game, and then they roll up to the stadium on the water, and then they keep partying and going into the stadium and watch the game. Seems really cool. I had a friend that I went to school with that went to Baylor for graduate school, and big Baylor fan. So I have to one day give him a call. I want to make a trip to Baylor. I would love to sailgate. Seems fun. But anyway, the crowd could be hostile there. So what's a way to take the crowd out of the game? Run the ball, keep possession, force turnovers, limit explosive plays, and defense travels. So the real question is, at the end of the day, can we slow down the number 1 pass offense in the Big 12? I think we can. We have the number 1 pass defense. So overall, when you compare the two, this is a great strength of UCF. I like the matchup. I think Baylor's only chance to beat us is through the air. And we have a healthy secondary. I think UCF's going to be able to force Baylor to run the ball. And UCF, won't break. They'll bend, but they won't break on defense. We're going to limit explosiveness, and that's going to provide enough of a buffer for UCF. As amount of points we score on average against the near worst defense in the Big 12 in Baylor. I think UCF's going to put up near our average of 30, and I think Baylor is going to struggle to find any points, really, because they're not going to be able to throw the ball consistently, and that's going to throw them off. And then they're going to have to adjust the game plan and try to run, and that's not going to work out well for them because we're basically going to keep everything in front of us, run clock. They're going to be down, and then they're going to force turnovers, and that's exactly where we want to be. Also, penalties. I think penalties are going to put them behind the sticks, and that's only going to benefit UCF even more when it's 3rd and 18, and we got the number 1 secondary in the Big 12, and we know they're going to throw. So let's send a guy, blitz. Let's send some linemen, little stun action, and put some pressure on their QB to make a turnover here. So overall, my final score prediction is UCF 38, Baylor 23. And that's my final score prediction. I think UCF's going to win this game. We're going to shoot up in the Big 12 standings. Currently, we sit 13th out of 16. But this is going to put us to 9th out of 16. And this is also going to put us one game away from bowl eligibility. Very excited. I think UCF's schedule going forward actually has a little bit more of an opportunity to gain some wins than I think most people think. So I'm excited. All right, charge on. Go Knights, and I look forward to this game, and I'll see you guys at ESPNU.